All right, today is Friday, February 12th, and new video, my journey to becoming a net worth millionaire investor. And so I like to just share my thoughts along the way, things I'm learning and observing and so on. And it just helps me become a better investor, I feel, over time, and hopefully it helps somebody out there too. What's on my mind today is basically the discrepancy in the jobs reports. So yesterday, the BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics, came out and said that, essentially we've added about 120,000, 30,000 jobs or so, somewhere in a six-figure range. Don't remember the exact number off my head. And so, on the surface, it looks like, right, hey, the economy is growing, new jobs are being added and so forth, right? But one of my biggest concerns about that report, however, is that the ADP also released their employment report, and their number came in at about 22,000 jobs added. And so in my mind, that's a pretty significant discrepancy between the two. And I'm not sure exactly why that's the case, but I'm curious as far as how all of this gets reconciled, right? Because in my mind, one of these numbers seems a bit off. Now, granted, I think over time with revisions, we'll see how things actually work out. But ultimately, what concerns me most about that is that a lot of the jobs that are still coming out regardless, right, seem to be happening in the same kind of sectors, namely healthcare, for example, and there's not really a lot of crazy growth happening elsewhere. And as far as AI and all that stuff, I just consider that to be its own thing. But with all that being said, it does make me wonder exactly how healthy the economy truly is, and how grim or maybe better than we think the picture is just for everyday workers, right? In my view, I sometimes get concerned about the idea that just the middle class economy, I guess you'd call it in general, is just kind of being overshadowed, right? And that while, yes, we're reported to be in this low fire environment, realistically, how long is that likely to maintain itself, right? Because keep in mind, with a report like that, then what that essentially says is that in terms of rate cuts, right, the likelihood of that happening now is next to none, at least while Powell is still in office. And it makes sense, because if we're still putting up those kind of numbers in this economy, then yeah, there's no point in lowering rates even further if, you don't have to, right? So if that remains the case, and say the rates are kept where they are, and money is going to be more expensive, or capital or money is going to be more expensive right now compared to how it has been, right, for like the past 10 plus years or so, then how does that ultimately affect, lending, borrowing, investments, right? And ultimately the just everyday person. So I'm very curious to see what sort of effects this has down the road, and namely if the economy actually does start to pick up steam, or if we're just getting false signals and it turns out that, hey, we're only really being carried by healthcare. Because in my mind, if that's the case, then that's extremely concerning. So, but yeah, that's where things stand right now. So what I'll be looking out from here is just to see what future reports look like. I think we have a CPI report coming out tomorrow, so we'll get a good gauge of how inflation is doing right now. I doubt it's going to be anything majorly different, right? We're still a good ways away from the 2% mark, but who knows? We'll see. But yeah, those are my thoughts today. I'm just curious if the economy is actually either worse or better off than we think. And right now the picture just looks a little murky. So yeah, with that said, let's see what happens. All right, peace.